Collections are a great way to customize your bullet journal so that it can help you do and achieve what you want. But what type of collections are out there? And how do we actually pick the ones to put into our journals? In our last video on collections, we talked about the two different types, the first being the core collections, or the index, future log, monthly, weekly, and daily logs, and the custom collections, which are the ones designed by the user, or by you. When it comes to deciding which collections you want to use in your bullet journal, it's easiest to consider the core collections first, because there's only 5 of them. Do you want an index? Do you want a future log? This really comes down to how you prefer to use your journal and what you want to use it for. For instance, I tend to not use an index in my bullet journals because most of my stuff is in chronological order, so it's really not that hard to find. Setting up an index and then having to number all the pages because I use a notebook that doesn't have any just seems like more of a chore, which means that I probably wouldn't end up keeping up with populating the index, so I just don't bother to put it in. If you're planning on having a lot of custom collections though, an index might be really useful for you, so you'd opt to put that collection in your stack. The future log is for date-specific future events, but if you're using something like a digital calendar alongside your bullet journal, then you might opt not to have a future log in your stack. For our 5 core collections, it's really just about asking yourself whether you want to include the collection and how you're going to use it, or if you're going to skip it. Custom collections, on the other hand, require a little bit more thought. Considering these are any collections that are outside of those core 5, that is a lot of potential collections, and you're probably not going to want to add every single one of them into your bullet journal. To list off a couple of examples, you could have something like a collection dedicated to keeping track of the books you want to read, or the movies you want to see. You could have a goals collection that lists out the goals you're working on and the actions that you want to take to accomplish them. Another collection idea could be the various brands that you trust for different household items. Really, the possibilities on custom collections are effectively endless, which can very quickly bring us to that overwhelmed feeling of having too many options. That's why when it comes to picking custom collections, the route that I usually like to take is a problem-solving one. So getting really specific on what I want my bullet journal to help me achieve or do, and then thinking about the types of layouts that could actually assist me in that. For instance, if one of my goals is around mental health, then possible collections I could include in my journal would be things like a mind unwind space to declutter all of the thoughts in my head, a habit tracker related to better mental health habits, a self-care bingo layout for some of the special things that I want to do to take care of myself, and really just a bunch of other possibilities too. It's good to note that when it comes to picking custom collections, you don't just have to stick to the ones that feel like problem solvers. Sometimes you can just include a collection because you want to. It's your journal. You can do what you want. A couple of things that I do like to consider before adding a collection to my journal though is, how am I actually going to use this collection? Will I keep up with the collection? And will not keeping up with it bring up any negative feelings? We don't want to set up a collection that realistically we knew we weren't going to fill in, and then by not filling it in we end up berating ourselves. That's not a good place to be in. Thankfully, I've personally gotten to the point in my bullet journal where if I set up a collection and don't really fill it in, it doesn't really bother me all that much, but when I first started out, it certainly did. So make sure to consider whether that's going to be an issue for you before putting the collection into your journal. If you are looking for some collection ideas outside of the ones talked about in this video though, I do have a list of over 500 different collection ideas that you could set up in your journal. That one's linked in the description box below, and hopefully it goes without saying that I do not encourage you to set up all 500 plus of them at the same time. In fact, probably ever, because you are your own person, not all of them are going to work for you. Have a look through them, pick out a couple that pique your interest, and add those to your lineup if you want to. Once you've set up and used your collections though, you'll eventually get to a point where it's time to migrate them either to a new journal or to a new month. Really depends on the collection you've set up. This is an excellent opportunity to reevaluate your collections and consider, are they still serving you, or do they need to be tweaked, changed, or scrapped? To learn more about that migration process so that you can keep an intentional stack of collections, we do have a separate video, so click or tap on that one and I'll see you over there.